Stop for a second. How many times have you said, I don't have time? It's not the right moment. I'll start when I feel ready. It's not my fault. We all have excuses. They sound reasonable. They sound intelligent. They even sound responsible. But they are costing you more than you realize. Every excuse feels small in the moment. Skipping the workout because you're tired, not launching the idea because the market is crowded, staying in the job you hate because now isn't stable, waiting to speak up because you don't want conflict. Individually, they feel harmless. Collectively, they shape your entire life. Here's the hidden cost of excuses. Every time you use one, you give away power. You hand control of your future to your circumstances. And when your circumstances control your life, growth becomes optional. Progress becomes accidental. Success becomes unlikely. Excuses create an external locus of control. That means you start believing that what happens to you matters more than what you do about it. And once you believe that, you stop trying at full capacity. Let's be honest, sometimes the excuses are true. You really are tired. You really didn't grow up with advantages. You really don't have as much money as someone else. The obstacle is real. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Something can be real and still be used as a shield. When you say, I can't because of this, what you're really saying is, I choose not to find another way. That choice feels safer. It protects your ego. Because if you don't try fully, you don't have to risk failing fully. Think about the person who wants to start a business but says, I don't have the capital. So they never test a small version. They never validate the idea. They never learn marketing. 5 years later, they're still researching, still preparing, still waiting. The excuse didn't just delay action. It trained them to live in potential instead of performance. Or think about someone who wants to get in shape. They say, I don't have time, but they scroll for an hour every night. The excuse protects them from discomfort, from discipline, from facing how out of alignment their habits really are. The result? Nothing changes. And eventually, they start believing they're just not the kind of person who's fit. Identity shrinks to match behavior. That's the second hidden cost of excuses. They rewrite your identity. When you repeat an excuse long enough, it becomes a story. I'm bad with money. I'm not disciplined. I'm just unlucky in relationships. I've always been like this. No, you haven't always been like this. You've always been practicing the same pattern. Excuses are patterns, and patterns become personality if you let them. When you blame circumstances, you eventually start blaming people. Your boss, your parents, the economy, your partner, society, and resentment feels powerful at first. It makes you feel justified, but it's actually a trap, because the more you blame, the less you build. Blame is passive. Responsibility is active. Blame says, they did this to me. Responsibility says, given what happened, what can I do now? And here's where it gets deeper. Excuses protect your comfort zone, but they suffocate your potential. Growth requires friction. It requires facing the possibility that you might not be as prepared, talented, or special as you hoped. It requires trying anyway. Excuses eliminate that risk. They allow you to preserve your self-image without proving anything. You don't launch the channel, so no one can judge your content. You don't apply for the promotion, so you never get rejected. You don't confess your feelings, so you never risk heartbreak. Safe, comfortable, stagnant. The most dangerous part? Excuses are socially acceptable. If you say, I'm building something meaningful and I need to make sacrifices, some people will question you. But if you say, I'm just really busy right now, everyone nods in agreement. Busyness has become the modern shield. But being busy and being productive are not the same thing. One drains you, the other moves you. Another example, imagine someone who grew up in a difficult environment. Limited resources, limited support, trauma. That pain is real. It matters. It shapes you. But there are two paths from there. Path 1, because of what happened, I'll never be able to. Path 2, because of what happened, I refuse to stay here. Same past, different response, different future. Your past explains you. It does not excuse you. Here's the bottom line. Excuses don't destroy your life overnight. They erode it slowly, quietly. They trade long-term fulfillment for short-term comfort. Each time you choose comfort over growth, you reinforce a belief. I am someone who avoids. And eventually, you wake up frustrated. Not because you lacked potential, but because you protected yourself from ever testing it. If this feels uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is awareness, and awareness is power. Because once you see the cost of your excuses, you can't unsee it. And when you stop blaming circumstances, something radical happens. You get your power back. Radical responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything. It's about owning your response to anything. It starts with 3 pillars. First, acceptance. Acceptance means you stop arguing with reality, not approving of it, not liking it, but acknowledging it. This happened. This is the situation. This is where I am. When you resist reality, you waste energy. When you accept it, you redirect energy. Second, action. Responsibility without action is just philosophy. You ask, what is within my control right now? Not next year, not when conditions improve, right now. Maybe you can't change your job today, but you can update your resume, learn a skill, make one connection, start one project. Action restores agency. Even small action shifts identity from passive to proactive. Third, adaptation. Sometimes you try and fail. Responsibility doesn't mean you win every time. It means you adjust, you learn, you iterate. Instead of saying, see, it didn't work, you say, what did this teach me? Failure becomes feedback. Look at any high performer in any field. They all share one trait: ownership. Athletes review their mistakes instead of blaming referees. Entrepreneurs pivot instead of quitting. Leaders admit miscalculations instead of hiding them. They ask one powerful question over and over: how did I contribute to this outcome? That question is uncomfortable, but it's liberating, because if you contributed to the result, you can also contribute to a better one. Now, here's how you start practicing radical responsibility today. First, identify your recurring excuses. Pay attention to the phrases you repeat. I don't have time. I'm just bad at this. It's too late for me. Write them down. Awareness breaks autopilot. Second, change your language. Instead of I can't, say I won't. Instead of I don't have time, say it's not a priority. That shift stings, but it forces honesty. Third, shrink the action. Overwhelm feeds excuses. If the goal feels huge, cut it down. 1 page, 1 workout, 1 call. Momentum beats perfection. Fourth, build accountability. Tell someone your plan. Track your commitments. Measure your follow-through. What gets measured improves. Fifth, conduct weekly ownership reviews. Ask yourself, where did I blame this week? Where did I avoid? What could I have done differently? Not to shame yourself, but to sharpen yourself. And now, here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, eliminate 1 excuse. Just 1. When it shows up, replace it with action. Small, imperfect, consistent action. 7 days. No stories, no waiting for the perfect moment, just ownership. Because here's the truth. No one is coming to rescue you. No perfect time is coming. No magical surge of motivation is on the way. But you are here. You are capable. And you are more powerful than your patterns. Cut the excuses, take radical responsibility, and watch how your life starts responding differently the moment you do. The future you want is not waiting for better conditions. It's waiting for a better decision. Make it today. Radical responsibility is not about carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's not about saying, everything is my fault. It's not about shame. It's not about self-punishment. It's about ownership. Radical responsibility means this: no matter what happens, I take full ownership of my response, even when it's unfair, even when I didn't cause it, even when I didn't deserve it. That's the difference most people miss. You are not responsible for everything that happens to you, but you are responsible for what you do next, and that shift changes everything. There are 3 pillars to radical responsibility: acceptance, action, and adaptation. The first pillar is acceptance. Acceptance is not agreement. It's not approval. It's not weakness. It's simply the refusal to argue with reality. Something happened. You lost the job. The relationship ended. The business failed. You made a mistake. Someone betrayed you. You can spend months replaying it, resisting it, saying, "This shouldn't have happened." But reality doesn't negotiate. When you fight reality, you lose twice. Once in the event, and again in your resistance to it. Acceptance says, this is the situation. I don't like it, but it's real. And the moment you accept reality, you free up energy. Energy that was trapped in anger, denial, or self-pity now becomes available for problem solving. High performers don't waste time arguing with facts. They face them fast. If revenue dropped, they look at the numbers. If performance slipped, they review the footage. If trust was broken, they examine their boundaries. Acceptance is power because it brings clarity. The second pillar is action. Ownership without action is just a mindset slogan. Radical responsibility demands movement. Ask yourself one question: what is within my control right now? Not everything, just something. Maybe you can't control the economy, but you can control your skill development. Maybe you can't control other people's opinions, but you can control your preparation. Maybe you can't control your past, but you can control today's habits. Action reestablishes agency. There's a reason people feel depressed when they feel powerless. Because humans are wired for agency. We need to feel that our choices matter. When you take action, even small action, you rebuild that sense of control. Consider someone who grew up in a difficult environment. Limited resources, limited support. They could say, people like me don't succeed. And statistically, that belief might even feel justified. But someone else in the same environment says, this will be my fuel. Same starting line, different response. The difference isn't luck, it's ownership. Look at entrepreneurs who failed multiple times before succeeding. They didn't say, the market is stupid. They asked, what did I misread? They pivoted, they adjusted pricing, they refined messaging. That's action. And action compounds. The third pillar is adaptation. Radical responsibility does not guarantee success on the first attempt. It guarantees growth. When something doesn't work, most people interpret it as a verdict. I'm not cut out for this. This proves I'm not talented. See, I knew it. Failure is data. Rejection is information. Mistakes are instruction. Athletes don't lose a game and quit the sport. They review. They train differently. They adjust strategy. Leaders who build lasting impact do the same. When a decision backfires, they don't hide from it. They dissect it. They refine it. They improve. Adaptation transforms setbacks into stepping stones. And here's the deeper transformation that happens when you live this way. Your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone things happen to. You start seeing yourself as someone who responds strategically. That shift is psychological freedom. You're no longer waiting for perfect conditions. You're building capability. You're no longer asking, why is this happening to me? You're asking, how can I use this? Radical responsibility also changes your emotional resilience. When you blame others, your emotional state depends on their behavior. If they change, you feel better. If they don't, you stay stuck. When you take responsibility, your emotional state depends on your standards. You hold yourself accountable. You focus on what you can improve. You become less reactive and more intentional. This doesn't mean you ignore injustice. It doesn't mean you tolerate abuse. It means you refuse to let external events dictate your internal growth. One says, they're just haters. People are jealous, and dismisses everything. The other says, is there 5% truth in this I can use? They extract the lesson. They upgrade. Same criticism, different trajectory. Radical responsibility doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Because if you own your mistakes, no one can use them against you. If you admit your blind spots, you can fix them. If you accept your starting point, you can move from it. Ownership eliminates excuses and replaces them with strategy. It's uncomfortable because it removes your favorite escape routes. You can't say, I'm stuck because of them. You can't say, I'll change when things improve. You can't say, that's just how I am. Instead, you say, given this reality, what is my move? And when you live like that consistently, something powerful happens. You build trust with yourself. Every time you respond with ownership instead of avoidance, you strengthen self-respect. You prove that you don't run from responsibility. You rise to it. Confidence isn't built by affirmations. It's built by evidence. Evidence that you can face hard things. Evidence that you can adapt. Evidence that you can take a hit and still move forward. Radical responsibility gives you that evidence. It transforms challenges into training. It transforms failure into refinement. It transforms pain into fuel. And once you experience that shift, excuses start to feel small because you realize something profound. You may not control every circumstance, but you always control your standard. And when you raise your standard for ownership, your life has no choice but to rise with it.